Hey everybody, J-Rob Plays here, and today's video is going to be going over the Caretaker encounter in Pantheon for Oryx Exhalted. So in this case, we're going to be minus 10 power. I was going to try to get a video up for the minus 5 version, but since I'm already doing the minus 10, I'll talk about ways that we kind of combated that. It's good that I had a little bit of a delay in this video because it changes things a little bit with the timer and the difference in damage you're doing because you're minus 10 power. So the strategy changes. Normally, for those who already know the encounter, normally you want to try to 3-plate the Caretaker every time you get a chance. Hold off on the second plate, do damage on the third plate. But what we found, and what I'll be adjusting in this one for LFG teams specifically, is a different strategy that's going to help save time on each floor, because you're very likely with an LFG team going to be having to deal with 3 floors. If you have the luck to get 6 players who are well coordinated, do good damage, coordinate very good on the plates, obviously you're going to 2-floor him. That's going to get a much easier and a much smoother platinum run for you in the Oryx Exalted Pantheon. But not everybody's going to be able to do that, and this video is supposed to be helping everybody, so I'm going to have a little bit of an audible for those teams that are struggling with the 3-plate system to try to get to the 3rd floor and to have enough time, because even in our run, we came down to 1 second on one of our runs, and we actually killed him, but the timer ticked over, didn't give us credit for it, so that was heartbreaking, especially because, you put time in, you try to get this, and you're finally like, all right, we're going to do it, and it just doesn't go through for you because of the way the game works with killing a boss right at the last second. Sometimes it gives it to you, sometimes it doesn't. We thought we had it, didn't have it. Now, of course, you have 3 roles in this encounter. What you're going to have is your runners, your 2 runners, you're going to have your 2 stunners, and you're going to have your 2 ad clear. Before I get into the roles, which are very important, and I'll go a little bit in depth on those, I want to talk about damage, because damage is where most people are going to end up failing this bonus time-wise, not getting the damage period, or not getting the damage in time, or taking too long with the plates. I'll be mentioning that a few times throughout the video, kind of talking about the plates and the positioning and stuff like that. And the reason why I talk about the plates so much is it's obviously a central mechanic, but when you're looking at bonus time and trying to hit your bonus time, the plates can make a difference. If you try to do 3 floors, 3 plates, you're very likely not going to hit in bonus time. And if you do 2 floors, 3 plates, there's still a chance that by the time you get to the 3rd floor, the very first plate that you're looking at is going to be gone, because the plates themselves activate the moment that the stairs come down, and you're still coming up 2 flights of stairs. So when you get up there, you got to do damage right away. You can't wait for anybody. If anybody's late, they just don't get that first plate. You go move on to the second plate. If you got a well, pop it between the second and the 3rd plates so that people can at least get a chance to sneak up and get some additional damage. It's tight. Like I said, I had an encounter where we had 1 second left, and we killed the boss at 1 second. It ticked over to 0. The boss died, but didn't really die. He came back to life, and it ended that run for us. We had to do it all over again and got it the next run, but it was just heartbreaking to get all the way to the top. You think you're done, and then you end up not clearing it, and you have to start all the way over again. So to combat this, what I would recommend for LFG teams is to do a 2-plate method. I know it sounds crazy not to get all the 3 plates, but hear me out. I'm going to mention this multiple times. Most teams are not going to have the coordination and damage to get 3 plates every single time on both floor 1 and 2. You're going to end up having a 3rd floor. And if you're that team and you go through the first couple of runs and you realize, all right, with these 6 plates essentially doing the way that you're supposed to do it, by a bunch of damage on the first plate, tickling with primers on the second plate so that he gets ready to go into his threshold on the 3rd plate, and then you dump your heavy, then your supers, and you get like bonus damage on him by doing that, and then you do that on the 2nd floor, you theoretically should 2-plate, and then you go to the final stand and you skip the 3rd floor, which saves runners some time, saves time for additional deaths and things like that. That's great. But again, this is an LFG guide, so not many teams are going to have the ability to do that. Not many teams are going to have the damage to do that. And the way you can combat this is by reducing the amount of times that you're sitting on plates. So you'll see here I've got a clip where my team and I, we actually push him beyond half health in 2 plates. The first plate, we hit him hard. The second plate, we get ready. We specifically get him with special and heavy ammo to the point where he goes over his threshold on the second plate, then hit him with our supers. And in comms, we were like, are we going to push him here? Everybody ready? Yes, go. We inadvertently did it because we were still kind of trying to figure out, are we going to 2 or 3 plate this? We just said, screw it. Everybody popped everything they had. And we surprised ourselves that on that second plate, we pushed him underneath half health. So that's what I recommend doing for LFG teams that are struggling and are really not realistically going to get a 2-floor. They're going to end up having a 3-floor situation, or you're running low and heavy and things like that. You want to really try to push them on that second plate. And you can do that if you understand how the damage threshold works. So the light part of his health, that's the damage threshold. Once you push him past that light part of his health into his normal health pool, then he'll end up disappearing after a little bit. But what you're trying to do is take advantage of the time between when you push him past his threshold, which is going to prevent a wipe, of course. And the time that he goes into his normal damage, you get bonus damage after the threshold. So a lot of teams, what they'll do is they'll use their supers to get him across the threshold. They'll open up with their supers, but you shouldn't do that. You should actually open up with heavy, then pop your super. And again, the reason being is that when he's in his health bar that's beyond the threshold, he takes additional bonus damage for that short period of time. So you're getting your spiky super damage in during that period which he's past his threshold, and not beforehand. If you did it beforehand, you would just do normal damage. Now you're doing bonus damage. And then this week, you can actually take advantage of Shot Caller as well, getting that additional damage for your heavy. So you want to activate your Shot Caller before his damage threshold, and then once he's after his damage threshold, go in and dump your heavy with that additional bonus damage. And I believe it's 20% of the Shot Caller from what I was seeing online. And so by doing the two-plate method, what you're going to be accomplishing is you're going to get him past his threshold. You're going to get him to at least a third or less on the first plate, a third or less on the second plate, finishing him off in the third plate, but doing so in a shorter amount of time than if you've done all 3 plates, because you're spending that additional time on that third plate on the first and second floor. That's going to lose you time on the third floor, getting up to him on the final floor, the fourth floor, that final stand floor. And by doing that, even with an LFG team that's not super coordinated, as long as you have enough damage to get him there, you'll be able to complete the encounter in the bonus time and get platinum in this encounter this week. And that's even with a slightly unorganized team. So that's my kind of contribution and main strategy to the LFG side of things, is giving you guys that little bit of tip of trying to do the two-plate method, pushing them on the second plate if you have the damage. That way you save time on each floor, because you know you're going to have 3 floors based on your team. Everybody online will talk ideally about, oh, you just got a 2-plate, you just got a 2-plate. It's not so easy for everybody. Not everybody's going to have the damage. Not everybody's going to be optimized. And if you happen to be on a team like that and you still want to get this encounter done, this is what I recommend. And so now that we've talked about that, let's go into some of the roles. Going into the mechanics, I'm going to be showing from the runner's perspective. The reason why I'm usually the runner is because I'm able to remember all the symbols that I have, kind of keep people in their places, call things out, kind of coordinate the team without really making a whole lot of mistakes as the runner. So that's the POV that you'll be seeing as a runner POV. I'll go over the stunning mechanics as well, and I'll kind of stitch in some streamer footage so you can see what it looks like. But for the most part, this video is going to be covering the runner's perspective, and how the damage works from the plates is going to be the same no matter what position you are, because everybody does damage, so you'll see that too. Now, starting out, you start the encounter by opening up the door, and you shoot the little glyphs on the side of the door to open the door. You can shoot the glyphs to keep the door open as well, so if you have somebody coming out timing-wise, the door's about to close, you can still shoot the little glyphs, or the little keys, or nuts as they call them, to keep the door open, and that'll allow your runner to get out. And the reason why the runner has to get out is because when you go into the room where the symbols are, you're going to actually start taking Pervading Darkness stacks, and those stacks, once they reach 10, will just kill you outright, even if you're in the doorway. If you don't cross the threshold of the front door, as soon as you get to that 9, almost going into 10, it's going to kill you. Now, even sometimes at 9, your vision will be very occluded. You're going to have a lot of darkness on the front of your screen, so you still won't be able to see all the symbols. There's a little bit of a cheese for that I'll cover, but you want to make sure that you're trying to get out there a little sooner. Try to get out 8 at the latest. And especially on the third floor, don't try to be a hero. If you can only grab 2 symbols and the other symbol is on the other side of the room on the third floor, you're going to come out with 2 symbols and send your runner back in the other one to get the 1 symbol on the other side of the room. You just put in your 2, the other runner will grab 1 real quick, come right back out. It just takes a few seconds. That'll avoid an unnecessary death and a wipe on the third floor, which is also heartbreaking, especially because you know you're about to send the boss there. You have all this ammo and all this time because you've been able to pick up from the different floors. So that's what I recommend. That's kind of the setup that I have. A big deal is going to be to get people on the same page with the callouts. If you go and you just Google Val Symbols Destiny 2, you're going to come up with a Val Disciple glyph icons picture that I'll have here on the screen, and they all have different names for those things. If you can get the 2 runners, at least, not everybody has to pull it up, just the 2 runners, to pull up this chart so you're using the correct names for the glyphs, or if you and the other runner have been doing it for a while and share the same names for the glyphs and understand that, that's going to be key, because you don't want to have a situation where somebody's trying to call something out and they're trying to give some crazy name, like, for example, Black Garden has a plateau and they're calling it like Plateau in Arizona or something crazy. You're going to be like, what are you even talking about? Most people understand knowledge is brain. Most people understand like the hive. People will call it eyes, things like that. But there's some weird stuff. People will call the kill symbol Japan. I had one of my teammates call Enter Assassin's Creed, and I was like, Assassin's Creed? And I looked at for all the symbols, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it, Assassin's Creed symbol. Okay, that made sense at the last second, but it could have still ruined the run. So just try to make sure you're on the same page with that. Definitely pull up these symbols, look at them, glance at them, As you're looking at the symbols, remember what they are, look at their callouts on the way out, and then get back to what you're doing. So for the runners, the difference in the Pantheon encounter is that when you're in there, there's going to be the same little, what they call bees, or the same little floating resonance enemies that are kind of coming out of the caretaker's back. They're going to also be inside of the room where the symbols are. If one of those hits you, it's going to add stacks of pervading darkness to you. Just a few shots from your weapon will take it out. Try to keep an eye on that as you're running in. A lot of people tend to get hit on the way in because it's floating into the door. So just tend to look up as you're running in, knock that first one out, and that'll make it to where you don't really get too high in stacks just from hitting those things or crossing side to side from doing those things. Because as you'll see in the second room and in the third room, as I'm showing the footage, there's more of them in the middle area as you're jumping side to side. So those are going to have a higher chance of hitting you. When you're in the first room, it is small and confined, so that kind of works against you as well too, those hitting you. But since it's so small, you really never get that high of stacks. It's going to really take place more in the third room if you get hit crossing side to side, or in the second room, if you're jumping the gap in the second room, there's a large gap in the second room, those are going to hit you. That's going to make it to where you can't get all the symbols as quickly, and you'll have to get out, because if you're not trying to get out at around 7 going to 8, you're definitely going to get to that point where you're hitting 8 going to 9, 9 going to 10 as you're hitting the door. When you get that 9 going to 10, you die, you end the run, so don't be that guy. So now that we've got kind of the way that the runner works out of the way, the idea is to go in and pick a side left and right, grab 3 symbols that are near each other, come back out to the totem in the center, and then locate them on the totem in the center. Now, the cheese for this, and a lot of people will see this in people doing solo runs, is instead of actually calling out your symbols, you and the other teammate, if you have like an SMG with the high magazine on it, you can actually just shoot both sides really fast, up and down on both sides, and it'll automatically accept whatever it is because you just happen to shoot the 3 correct symbols as you're coming out. So there is a little bit of a cheese for it, but it's not perfect, and it can end runs because sometimes it doesn't work. It won't accept. You stop shooting, somebody runs out of ammo, they weren't reloaded. So it's better to know which 3 you have. You're going to shoot the 3 that you have, but don't just shoot them once. You're going to continuously shoot them in a pattern and keep shooting them until it accepts it, because sometimes you'll shoot all 3, and for whatever reason, one of them falls off and it just doesn't accept it. If you take too long, it'll reject your offering. That's going to add more time to the run, and that's going to take more time off of your bonus time and also make it a little tougher on the stun team. Now, if you have a good stun team, the caretaker never gets close to the totem. But a lot of times, what I saw in this +10 is people were dying to stuff like, or they're getting hit by bees. There's the ads that spawn with the arc shields, and they're just not prepared for them. So those ads end up killing them, bumping them off the map on the lower level. There was a lot more chaos going on from what I saw on the stun team at -10 that they couldn't handle the same as they would if it was normal or -5. So that is one difference there. Now, on the totem itself, too, the ads will play a part. If your ad clear team is poor at killing the ads that spawn on the 2 walkways, they will filter their way up to the very middle and just start wailing on the totem. Once the totem's yellow area, there's like a glowing yellow area that starts to fill up. Once it reaches the top, it'll wipe you guys too. And we had that happen as well on -10, where it normally wouldn't have happened on -5 or normal. So that's just one additional thing to look out for is if you're the other runner and you're out and there's ads kind of walking up the walkway at you, try to kill them and then balance that and keeping the door open for your teammate who will be telling you that they're coming out, and you want to make sure that door's down so they don't get stuck and get hit with one of those little bees or get wasted by the wizards. The wizards can kill you very quickly if they hit you with all of their slow floating projectiles that start moving towards your body. The wizards tend to kind of double up. There's usually 2 wizards and send those at the same time, and that can melt you pretty quickly as well. Another key thing is that if you're the runner, you're going to want to survive, because if you die, usually ends the run if you die in a bad spot. So run healing grenades, run things that you're going to use for survivability, and just make sure that you're moving in such a way that you're not sitting still in these rooms to where you're getting hit by any of the enemies, getting hit by the thrall, things like that. Try not to get stuck on stuff. Like on the 3rd floor, for example, a good tip on the 3rd floor is to try to get the symbols that are in the back of the room first if you're the better runner. So that way the second runner, who only goes in once, can just grab the ones close to you. And then by the time you go in a 3rd time, those symbols usually filter close to you again. So you just like jump, get the first one, jump up to the high point, and then come back out again with a 3rd one. That's going to be my recommendations for the runners and the LFG side of things. Usually those guys are also the most confident, so they usually need the least amount of coaching. They can kind of get it done. Now, normally the ad clear is neglected because they just, oh, it's just killing enemies. But the ad clear is actually getting important once you get to that minus 10, 15, and 20 power. At minus 10, it's significantly different, and you can see there's significantly more enemies making it to the totem. At minus 15 next week, it's going to be even more. There's going to be always people there. You're going to have to duke it out if you're a runner to help out those ad clear people. And the ad clear people can't just be lazy. Like, you got to run good builds. You got to run builds that try to lay waste to enemy groups very quickly. You know, Ignitions this season is strong. You would definitely be served very well by running some type of solar build that focuses on ignition. So when they spawn in and you catch them, you spawn trap them, and you can clear whole waves of enemies and just keep everything clean. The difference for the ad clear people is there's going to be ogres spawning that are pretty strong, and you want to make sure that you're running some kind of a special to handle them, whether it be like a disorienting grenade that's going to suppress them while you just tickle them down, or if you're going to run something like Mountaintop or Sniper, something that's going to put them down quickly and efficiently, and that's got good ammo economy, so that way you're able to hold up to your end of the bargain as an ad clear person and having quote unquote the easiest job. You still need to make sure that you're looking out for your teammates. When you have time, you want to try to get down there and help out with the stunners ads too, because those can cause a stunner to die. If the stunner dies, the boss gets a little bit out of hand, gets pretty much close to the plates. On the stunning, talking about stunning, we actually also coordinated a little bit to where we were coming out with our third set of symbols. The stunners would stop stunning the boss, because if they kept stunning the boss, he would take a little bit longer to get up to the plate, and that would waste precious seconds that you need to get to that third floor and to get to the finish. So that's another thing for LFGs that I recommend doing, is the runner, when they're getting this third set of symbols, say, hey, all right, stop stunning, I'm coming out. So that way they come out and you shoot the totem, and then he's already pretty much walking up to the first platform that you do damage on, and then that plate is ready to go in a few seconds. You don't have to sit and wait for him forever for the plate to be ready to go. So now that we covered the runner roll and the ad clear roll, let's talk about the stunner roll. The stunner roll is theoretically the easiest mechanic, but it's hard in practice for some people, because you have to balance stunning the boss, having his gaze, getting close to the boss, and getting him to try to stomp, and then backing up without taking too much damage. And then once you have that, the other person will shoot his open back. That's going to turn the gaze to them. You have to balance that with also dealing with the enemies that are going to spawn. You're going to have to deal with taking flanks and captains that have shields, shooting at you with arc damage. They're going to be trying to push you out of position to where you can't actually get your stun off. They're going to make it difficult for you, on top of the caretaker trying to attack you. The caretaker himself pushing the bees out at you. You got to shoot the bees down before they hit you and do multiple bits of damage, because what will happen a lot, of what I see people die a lot to, is the bees will start coming down. The people won't see it. They'll take some damage from the ads, and they'll be like half health and think they're fine and won't use some type of protection ability, and they get hit by 3 or 4 bees and they die. And so it's just kind of situational awareness for them. The footage I'm going to have is going to be from Astacross, because he's usually stunning on his stun team, and you'll see the situation that he's in where he gets into the caretaker space, and some people will actually punch the caretaker, which forces the caretaker to kind of stomp. When you have the caretaker stomp, you shoot the caretaker in the head. That's going to stun the caretaker for a second and also get you the gaze. His back is going to open up, and then that's when the person behind shoots the back, and then they're going to repeat the process. The caretaker is going to turn to them, they're going to close distance, get him to stomp, then back up, shoot him in the head, and then the person that's in the middle is going to then do that to the caretaker again, which is going to slow the caretaker down. And you just juggle that the whole time with dealing with the ads, trying not to fall off, get booped off, those scenarios. And you're going to do that on every floor, and it's a little different on every floor. On the first floor, you have a little bit more room. On the second floor, everything's a little tighter. And then on the third floor, you've got these long, skinny walkways that you have to deal with. Even though you've got more room in the center, the caretaker doesn't spend a lot of time there. He spends more time on these long, skinny walkways, and they're kind of spread apart. There's going to be more ads doing damage to you because there's not as much cover. Everything's pretty flat on the third floor, so you're going to be taking damage not only from the caretaker, but from the ads. The ad clear guys are usually failing at this point because there's just so much going on. They're having to deal with their stuff. They're having to deal with their ogre. They're having to deal with the stuff in the middle. Whenever it was master, it was going to be having to deal with the champion, which is arguably easier than dealing with the ogre, because at least the champions, you can stun them. The ogre's beefy and can do a bunch of damage in a short period of time when he blasts you down while running at you with the eye beam. So it's a little bit more of a daunting task for a lot of the ad clear. The ad clear is going to be much more important in the -10, -15, and -20 caretaker encounter. And so those jobs, you can't even be a slouch in that if you're trying to get this done, because constantly having your ad cleared down, that's going to distract somebody to come across to try to get that res. If the runner happens to, out of habit, go to get the res, the runner won't be there to open the door sometimes for the person inside, and then you die and you wipe on the third floor again. Had that happen a couple times as well. So that's one thing you want to iron out is the ad clear person. If they die, either one of the stun guys who happen to be nearby will have to go out there to get the res, or the other ad clear is going to have to come all the way across, ignore his ads, kill your ads, get your res, and then try to make it back across without dying, clearing his ads, without letting the ads pile up on the totem. So it can get pretty hectic. It can get pretty disorganized really fast if you're not paying attention to what you're doing and you die, you're holding your team down. So just, again, don't be that guy. If you need to run away from your area to get your health back, run away from your area to get your health back. Let your ads pile up, that's fine, and then knock them out with something. If you need to use your super, that's fine. Just don't end the run. You want to make sure that you're in a situation as the ad clear person that you have everything nice and clean. You're prioritizing your life so that you don't end up being a liability for somebody else, and then you're coming back to get the ads clear. And as long as you get the totem guys time to go out there and clear their totem up, and the totem doesn't take full damage so that you wipe, you did your job, right? So what if the totem is like at 90% and the guys get the pattern in, and then you go into the final damage phase? It doesn't matter. Take your time when you get to that third floor, as both the ad clear people and the stun people work together. Just make sure you don't die. That's your only job at that point, is to continue your mechanic without dying. And the runners will usually come through for you so you can get to that third phase and then get the boss dead. Just a quick recap at the end of the video here. We know how to handle the damage. We know the two-plate strategy. We've got the runners set up going. You get the runners on the same page. Everybody knows the symbols. The ad clear is really going to matter when you're getting into 10, 15, and 20 power difference. Those guys are going to have to slay out more and more each time, especially in the contest mode side of things. Everybody's got to handle their weight if you're trying to get in there and get your Godslayer title. The stunners have to be more situationally aware because of the ads that are behind them. The bees do a little bit more damage when you're -10, 15, and 20. And of course, if one of the stunners goes down, the caretaker gets away. Once he gets to the statue and touches the statue, he wipes the group and you can run. So the stunners themselves also need to bring it on the 10, 15, and 20 power side of things to make sure that you get this done. And again, specifically on LFG teams, I know that there's a lot of groups that have been doing this together for a very long time, but in those groups, they already got their spots settled. They're usually not the ones that are looking for video guides on how to get these things done because they've already done it over and over again for so long. So this is going to be for mostly new players in LFG. I hope this information helps you guys get the Oryx Pantheon done this week. And this information will still be good for the +15 and +20 in the following weeks, as long as you follow the same patterns. It's really just about bringing more damage. And the two-plate thing, of course, will still work in those modes, as long as you're able to output enough damage to push and past the threshold and you perform on floor 3, you'll still be able to get this done. So good luck to everybody. Thank you to my new subscribers. Thank you to my current subscribers. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me and building up our community little by little. Like always, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I'll be glad to give you guys any advice that I can to help you get this done. I'll see you guys in the next video.